is going on, everyone? It's your guy, Cole Jackson, back with another episode of the Two Guys Watching Football Film Room. Today we're going to be talking about the man, the myth, the legend, the mountain, Daniel Faalele. I'm joined by my good buddy, Zach, at perp_black veins, also running the analyst hump track. How's it going, buddy?
I'm good. I've been waiting all day for this one, man. I've been excited all day.
And so for those of you who don't know, Zach's someone I've gotten to know really well over the last year. And he's been doing some awesome threads on Twitter where he's going through game film, going through the A22, listing out his thoughts by game. I found those threads super helpful just to read myself, see someone else's opinion. I always love to kind of see a game-by-game breakdown. Really helps you kind of see what some guys are doing really well, not doing well, and then kind of see it broken down by game. So it's a really cool way to present information. So I highly encourage his ads right there. Go check it out. I think you guys will really like it. And also, you got to tell me what's up with the Marlon Humphrey tracker. Where'd that come from?
Because Marlon always loves to brag about how good he is at predicting these college games. And I'm like, nobody's actually knows if he's any good at this stuff. So I started, I think it was literally just this year I started and I went through his week one things and was just like, all right. He said, this is good. And I just started keeping track. And then his, the podcast account that he has, saw it, started promoting it, and that got a lot of following. And then it's just he's nervous to make picks because he knows somebody's out there tracking him now. So I don't know.
I think you should be more nervous about some of those food takes that he has because those are.
The food takes are awful. But he finished out I don't remember the exact numbers because it ended a while ago, but he finished out with a 65% accuracy rating on the college game. So not too bad.
That's not bad. Better than me. I can't bet with crap. We got our first comment. Is this the Jermaine Johnson session? Am I in the right place? Tony, beat it, buddy. We'll be doing it soon there, big guy.
He's exciting. He's been killing the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he has. And but today we're talking about Daniel Faalele. So you guys, everyone knows him. I mean, he's been the buzz of the week. Obviously, was going into a huge Senior Bowl, a lot to prove. He measured in at the Senior Bowl at a ridiculous 6'8", 387 pounds with 35 and 3/8 arms and 11-inch hands. Really, absolutely insane measurements. It's to the point where there's really no player comparison for him. There's guys that are close, but when you look at, even Orlando Brown Sr., RIP, even he was only, I think he came in at 365 at his heaviest. Jordan Maleta, another Australian who had a similar path. I think he was 6'8", 365, if I remember correctly.
365. Yeah,
so he's got 20 pounds on these guys that are kind of up there with him. There was another, I put a thread out on it. Jonathan Ogden was 6'9", 345, if I remember correctly. He's just when you're 20 pounds heavier, it's just crazy. So, he's got that raw, insane size, and it's something you got to think about. So he's played all of his snaps at right tackle for the Golden Gophers, and he was basically a full-time starter for 31 of 34 games across 2018, 2019, and 2021. He opted out of the 2020 season because of COVID, so he didn't play that fourth full season, which is kind of interesting because tonight we're gonna look at some Senior Bowl clips first here, but then we're gonna look at the 2019 Penn State game and the 2021 OSU game, and I picked 2019 Penn State because, well, first of all, it features two current Ravens because Odafe Oweh's in that game. So is Rashad Bateman playing for Minnesota. But, that Penn State defense was stacked. It has number 11, Micah Parsons, number 99, Yetur Gross-Mateos. It has Oweh, Shakatoni, number 18. That's top. Robert Windsor, number 54. He was drafted in the 6th round by the Colts in 2020. So you see some action on him on some of the down blocks and zone blocks where he's on the backside. So I thought that was really interesting just to see him in 2019 against some top talent that eventually ended up in the NFL. And then we're going to look at the Ohio State game. So that'll be good. But, he's got a really fascinating story because he's so new to football. And I think we've all really learned about Jordan Maleta, who's playing for the Eagles. He's not quite the same because I think Maleta came over and basically was a rugby player that declared for the NFL draft, and he ends up getting drafted in the 7th round. Whereas Faalele ended up at the IMG Academy at 16 years old. So he was recruited, a little bit earlier. So going into the NFL draft, he's not as green to the sport of football. But my good buddy, guy that I have on here all the time, my man Michael Crawford, was telling me a story about his recruitment. So he went in through the International Pathways program, and they were trying to recruit him, and they basically were like, what position are you going to play? And he said offensive tackle, because he had seen the movie The Blind Side and made that connection to Michael Orr. Like, he's the biggest guy in the movie. He was the biggest guy in the field. He played left tackle, protecting the blind side. So that's what Faalele thought. I'm the biggest guy out here. I'll be an offensive tackle. So fun little Ravens parallel there. And then I started reading some stories about him, just trying to get to know a little bit. He actually quit playing rugby when he was younger because he was hurting kids. And I mean, this was when he was like a youth. He was just way bigger than people. He was like 6'3" at the age of 12, if I remember. Like, it's just insane size. And then he actually moved on to basketball from rugby. And he was discovered by a Hawaiian football coach while working out in a Melbourne, Australia gym. After one look at him, he ended up offering him a college scholarship on the spot. So, I mean, that's what we really have to factor in. He's green. I mean, he ended up at one of the top high schools in IMG Academy. So that's great experience working with some top coaches. Got Baltimore beat down in here. What would the Faalele movie be called?
Aussie Down Under.
Yeah, Aussie Down Under. There you go. And we also got Sip to Tally. My guy Sip to Tally. Go check out his channel. I think
he just dropped one.
He's got
just dropped one on Faalele today. Yeah.
Make sure you guys go check that out. Love the work the coach puts in. Thanks for being here, Coach. So, and I know you dug up some stuff watching some of the broadcast films. So what can you tell me about Faalele?
So I went back and I watched the Penn State, just the whole broadcast, and they just had these funny tidbits, because at that time he was topping out at his biggest at 400 pounds. And they were bringing up like size comparisons between like adult male lions, upstand pianos. They Sean Clifford and KJ Hamler, who was still with Penn State at that time, both combined still weighed like 20 pounds less than he did. The coaches, they had asked him before the game, they were like, so what size gloves do you wear? And he told them 4XL, and they were like, wow, he's like, yeah, they still don't fit me. I wanted bigger, and they just didn't have them.
So just like sheer size. It's freakish. It's freakish. And we're going to see that. I mean, we're going to see a big dude playing. We're also going to see a green dude playing. And we're going to talk a lot about, I think, the story with Faalele as a player is that potential. It's that ceiling that he has. Just for a guy that's that size, that moves as well as he does. But he's got some rawness to him. And I'm actually going to start with the Senior Bowl, because these clips are all over the place. So I pulled both stories, because I think, you every time the Senior Bowl comes around, you see guys, everyone always says it, guys make money, guys lose money on Senior Bowl weekend. Same with the NFL Combine. And that's true. I'm not disagreeing with that. But Zach, I kind of want to ask you, just get us started here. Like, how do you kind of factor in Combine performance, all-star games, bowl games, like the bowl games for like East-West Shrine Bowl, Hula Game, all that kind of stuff? How do you factor that into the kind of player evaluation process?
It's important. You can't deny the fact that it gives a lot of light. Like if you see a guy and you thinking maybe he runs a 4.45, and then he goes out and he runs a 4.65 or a 4.7, maybe like the play speed's still there, but you're going to start questioning, okay, is he training right? Does he know what he's doing with his I would run the other way. There's no chance that I'm taking a fight with that guy. I think that might be Kyle. But it's important, but the most important part to me is the game film, because that's where you see everything come together. You can be the strongest guy in the weight room, but if you don't know how to put it onto the field, it doesn't matter if you can lift weights if you can't move a guy. If you can run the 3-cone really fast, but you can't run that in route seamlessly, then what's the point? So the game film matters more to me personally, but I think there's definitely a part to be played for the Senior Bowl specifically, especially because you bring especially for I think Mac Jones himself like proved a lot last year. He was a guy that held the questions. Okay, is it just Alabama with all the receivers and the system and the offensive line? He goes to the Senior Bowl. He does the exact same thing under a different system with different guys, and look what he did this year. He was great this year. He was better than probably any of the other rookie quarterbacks.
And I think what you're getting at is it has to be contextualized, and that's really all that's important to me. Is and I'm going to show some examples. I'm actually going to start with the clips with Miaje Sanders from Cincinnati, because I think those were the first two that kind of got out there. He got short cornered, and then Miaje hit him with a spin move and ended up bowling him. But then there's a clip later against Miaje where he's running a play action and he stonewalls him. And so why is that important? It's because at Minnesota, he was asked to do so much play action. They ran the ball a ton, and when they did throw it, a lot of it came off play action. So we're talking about a very raw football player, very green guy, getting used to technique. A guy that set himself. He set himself at the Senior Bowl. I forget who put it out there. I actually think it's in one of the clips, so I'll highlight it when we get to it. But he said, he was used to doing 45-degree sets at the University of Minnesota when he was in true pass sets. He's not as used to doing a vertical set.
I don't think why is that? I don't think he ever did vertical sets. I think he's like literally,
there's a lot of 45s, and so in some of these one-on-ones, he's taking vertical sets, and you can see his feet stopping. He's not.
I think he's quite literally learning how to vertical set at the Senior Bowl. That's what it looks like. Like he's so uncomfortable with it.
I think so too, and I think so. Let's start with that, because those are the first couple of plays. So I'm just going to throw these up. They're pulled from a variety of sources. Our guy Spencer Schultz is down there. So this is the first one with Miaje where. Oh, that's skipping. Hold on a sec. I have too many clips pulled on my Canadian internet. Hold on, let me refresh it.
Good old Canada.
Yeah, pretty much.
We love the hockey, though, so thanks for that.
I wasn't even going to show these because it was pausing. So there. Okay, so that's just a short corner. He didn't get vertical enough, but it looks like he's in a vertical set on here, and so he hits him with the ghost hand there. Well, I think, and so this is where you're going to see guys in these practices. They have new coaches that they haven't been working with. They're going to hit them with new techniques. So he throws a ghost hand here. So there's the ghost hand. And as he kind of threw the ghost hand, his feet slowed down. And so, this clip also, he does get short cornered. I'm not saying he doesn't, but he does recover. He's got his hands there, and any quarterback's going to step up.
Yeah. He does his job.
It's not that, it's not that he won, but I think when we look at this and it's like, oh, he got beat. Well, we can look at kind of what happened, but I thought he recovered well. So you got to kind of take the good and the bad. But then on this next one, I think this is the one where he gets
this is the one that's been blowing up.
And so, what he did, and the reason I picked this angle is because you can really see his feet. So feet, and he's just narrow there, but he's also back on his heels. But Brandon Thorne tweeted out, this play that we're looking at right here came on the next play from the one we just watched. So what we just saw is him
get more vertical to make up for it.
And he's playing on his heels. You can't really see the heel placement too much on this video, but he's back. He's on his heels. He's narrow.
You can see the toes lifting up. He is.
So that's
he is
kind of
in
my
backpedal mode.
So so that's where it's like, oh my God, this guy's ending up on his butt. Well, I don't see that a lot in his college tape. So, is he going to be a guy that, if you go read, I don't know if it was Krabs or Joe Marino that did the Draft Network profile on him, but when they talk about his anchor, they say he doesn't get knocked back ever.
I think it was Marino.
Yeah, I think it's Marino. So, but again, we need to think about the technique he's using here versus what he used in college. So what did he do in college? Well, here he is against Miaje again, and it's going to be a play action. And look at the difference. Stonewalls him. He's got his hands on him. That's something that I think the reason I like this clip is because I've noticed throughout his film and even at the Senior Bowl, when he can get his hands on you, he's 11-inch hands with the type of grip strength he has, the rep's over, right? So, this is what he was used to right here was play action, getting his hands on a guy and then controlling him with his anchor. No one's getting by him there. That's just freakish. So
he's the biggest guy on the field. If he gets his hands on you, you don't have the strength to get off him. There is one clip that we will get to in the Penn State game where Tigros Matos has really good hand fighting against him. But other than that, and the other thing there is he's so much better when he's going forward on the attack. He's clearly more comfortable going forward than he is going backwards right now. So when he gets to do those 45 sets and be a little bit more aggressive, you can see that he's more comfortable with it.
Yeah, versus the vertical, I agree. And then here's this play. So I was telling Zach before we recorded. So this right here, Ottawa's very own, that's Jesse Luketa. So he's not just a Canadian that gets me excited. He's actually from Ottawa, which is where I live. He he played in the organization that I coached in. So I mean, this is big for us. Not just Canada, but Ottawa specifically. He's going to be up there with probably the most. Neville Gallimore's from Ottawa too, but now that we're kind of getting some kids out there, Neville Gallimore also played in the Cumberland system, so it's exciting for us. But I was telling Zach this was actually on CBC News, which is like our national news, bro. So this was national news, this clip. So it was just funny to see while I was having dinner that he's on the news. But
what passes for news in Canada?
And this is, again, what was interesting about this is a play action where he's doing what we just saw against Miage, but he just comes out lackadaisical here. And he gets bold. And so all Luketa did here, and Luketa doesn't really, it's not like he goes on to make a play on the ball. He just played straight sheer physicalness with him. So, I mean, I think it's the combination of 2 plays and 2 days with him on his butt that have people a little kind of wondering what's going on. But we also see some of this, and I think this is what we want to see too. So we're going to talk about this a lot tonight because I think the biggest weakness in pass protection on his film was when he lost inside. He would overset and give up that inside rush lane. So what he's got doing here with his hand placement, that's really nice. That's what we want to see. So, excited about that. I don't know if this is the same play or different play. I think it's a different one. Yeah, that's just a different one. He's
got grips when he gets his hands on you. It's just he's got mammoth grips on you.
And this is vertical set, but what he did in this one versus the other one, he's just patient. He's just what I tweeted about this yesterday. He's just got to be patient. When he gets too aggressive and he doesn't trust his feet, and I think that's probably the biggest piece from what I've taken away. It's when he doesn't trust his feet, he shoots his hands because he's thinking, I got these long arms, big mitts. I want to get my hands on you. So he starts lunging, and when he starts lunging or trying to overset on a guy, it opens up other rush lanes. They can branch moves off of him. So in this set, all he does is, you want to try and bend my edge? I'll just keep moving my feet, get my arms out. It's over. So, I mean, that I want to show these last two because I think there's been so much negativity on some of the reps that came out, but there's also been a lot of good reps. So, I mean, take the good with the bad, look at the full picture. I'm not going to say, I mean, it didn't hurt. It didn't help that EDC said he should be gone by the end of the 3rd round. So everyone's like, we can just wait till the 3rd round and get him with one of our 3rd rounders.
No.
So, but let's jump into the Penn State game.
Heck yes.
Let's get right into the film. So we're going to see a lot of different clips in here. We're only going to pull a few from the Penn State game. Yeah. First one's at the 22nd.
Pull up my notes. Yeah. This game is actually I don't know where it ranks, but at this time when it happened, Rashad Bateman goes off for I think 203 in this game. It was his career high, and it was like the 2nd highest in school history for Minnesota at the time.
So this is embarrassing, but I'm watching last night and I'm taking my notes on the Penn State game, and I'm looking and I'm like, 13. Who is number 13? Because I'm thinking 2019, and I know Tyler Johnson was there at the same time, and I think Bateman switched to number 0.
He switched to 0.
So yeah. I'm a little bit justified, but I go and look, and I'm like, which one's number 13? Because he catches early in this game, he catches a 66-yard touchdown, and it was nasty. And so I'm like, who is that? And it's like, it's it's our first rounder. He's on our team.
If you watched film last year for receivers, you've watched this game. You're just watching it for a different reason now.
Yeah, I don't watch receivers. I don't know what they're doing out there on the edge.
Receivers and corners, baby. They're the most fun.
So we're gonna see. This is Robert Windsor right here, lined up more of a 2-eye. And you're just going to see a nice little hip toss. Like, that's kind of like...
so physically dominant.
It's just sheer strength here. So, I mean, not a whole lot to it. They run this. I got to ask Mike, this looked like... It's got to be zone read because it looks like the running back path is to the left, and then but I wasn't sure if it was the veer. But no one does a veer arc release from the play side. So I think it's zone read. So the option would be kind of up the gap here versus the quarterback keeping it and doing that kind of sweep motion. But I mean, obviously he didn't get a lot of work done there, the running back, but just from Faalele, like he's taking a big dude. He's just going to put him on the ground.
And he does it. He does, like, you'll see it a lot tonight. Like almost every, like a ton of the run clips we have, he's just bodying dudes. He just does it so much.
He uses that hip toss a lot, which I thought was interesting because that takes a lot of athleticism to get your hands on a guy and jerk their body that way. That's not just something that a big, strong dude can do. Like that takes hip mobility. It takes that kind of pressure you need to get up on him. So I think that was
I think go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say I think this is a set. Yeah, 28's Odafe. So this is a set on Owe. So let's take a look at this. And so there's that 45 set. It's tough. You guys will notice a few times tonight. You're gonna be like, well, that's not really like a true pass set. That's Minnesota's offense. Especially in this Penn State game. It's runs, it's screens, it's play action,
RPOs.
It's tough. And so I mean, that's where I'm talking about when I talk about things he's doing in the Senior Bowl. It's not that I'm not trying to make excuses for him and say like, just because he didn't do it, it's okay. No, but you kind of have to think about his ability, his greenness in football, raw player, hasn't played a ton of football. Maybe he wasn't asked to do these things at the IMG Academy. Now he's in Minnesota and he's not doing a ton of them. I mean, we can see that from his film. Now he's at the Senior Bowl and they're asking him a vertical set all the time. And he's like, Coach, hi, what's a vertical set? Like, it's just, you have to think about that as you project him forward. So that's really all I want to preface that with.
I mean, but he went to IMG in 2016. It's 2022. So that's 6 years, and 2022 just started. And he opted out in 2020. So he's got, just about 5 years of football experience, when most kids that come to play football for college, they've been playing it since 4 years old?
They're in diapers, yeah.
Yeah, like, we live and breathe football here in America. I mean, this is all new to him.
But this outside hand was what I was looking at here because it's a 45 set.
That's such
not
a
a
good
lot.
move by the running back.
Did I just lose? Oh, it's right here. Okay. What I wanted to show is that it just shows his grip strength. So watch how always outside, so his left shoulder pad. Like you just kind of see once he locks his mitts in here, he's able to control. He gives that pull down, right?
He's even starting with
his ability to kind of get his hands on that. And I found that his hands got a little bit wild at times. And I think that's one of his biggest areas to improve is his hand placement. But when he does get his mitts on you, like they're vice grips. They're going to control your chest plate. You're going to have a hard time. I think we're going to see a nice little, this is that zone rep. So what I like here, this is against Micah Parsons. And so they're just going to run zone to the right, go behind him. And Parsons does a good job. Parsons does his job here in the sense that he attacks the outside shoulder and forces the running back to cut in, which is what you want to do. But what I liked here was Faalele's patience. And I highlighted this watching Trevor Penning. What I saw in that game was he got kind of out in space and he didn't really know where to go. But watch Faalele slow down to kind of mimic. See how he's right there and he's got that inside hand ready. And he just squares him up and gets in a shoot. And he shows some really good hip mobility here, too, to kind of square him up. So in terms of a zone run, I really liked what he did here, just kind of staying with a very athletic player and having him kind of in his shoot so that, Parsons couldn't just run around him. Because that's what some of these fast little quick linebackers want to do. They want to get you out in space and just avoid your block. But he kind of stays square up on him, stays low, gets in a shoot, gives him a good little drive.
One of the things the Ravens Twitter seems to be nervous about when it comes to Faalele is they're worried because he's so big, does he have the flexibility? And they've seen the clips of him getting bowled over. It's like, Jesus, he can't move. Why do we want the? And he has the flexibility. It's just about consistency with him. I think if Faalele becomes 20% more consistent and has better hand placement, he's a shoe-in for a top 20 pick. I mean, it's just rawness. It's just technique.
You see a little bit of a vert here from him, and you're going to see some.
He
nice
does
patience.
Well. His feet, when he's locked in with his feet and he knows what he's doing with them, they're so smooth.
Nice patience with his hands. Good hand placement. Yeah, Can't ask for much more there on him. So I mean that's kind of like if it's like, okay, what can it look like if it's all going well? It's kind of a clip like this. Just patience, man. That's the biggest thing if I'm coaching him that I'm trying to tell him is just slow down, be patient, trust your feet.
Trust your strength and trust your feet.
Get a nice little outside zone rep here from him.
See,
so this is something that he does
so well.
Yeah, and that's something that I talked about with Mike that I wish I would have saw out of Penning a little bit more. Was the side shuffle when he was out in space, and I wondered if he struggles on some of his down blocks because I find he shuffles a little bit much. So again, I wonder if that's what he's being coached to do because of how much zone Minnesota runs and getting him out in space on the front side, but. That's agile movement right there from him, and takes 34 right out of the play, launches a big run. That's doing your job on the play side of zone. So, heck of a route there. And he's got a play here.
Collapse.
Gross Mateos.
Yeah.
There on the right side.
I think he bodies him on this one. Yeah.
Just. And so I picked this one because Minnesota runs a lot of zone. So it's always tough, and we talked about this with Linderbaum and some of the guys that run in even Penning, because Penning didn't do a ton of down blocks. So I got to try and take where I can see a bit of a down block and show what it could look like. Because I mean, if the Ravens are going to run as much power they run a lot of power to the right. If Faalele is their guy, they're running that behind Zeitler and Faalele. So what can that look like where he's got a down block to his left?
It's a big duo right there.
I know. Gross Mateos slants down too. So, I mean, he kind of used his momentum against him, but the quickness, his ability to get low, engage his hips. I mean, he's not high on this rep.
He's even if Gross Matos tried to engage him here, he's so low and would have so much leverage. I don't think it would have mattered.
Yeah. So that's what I want to see there from him. And then I think we see a nice little pass set from 1228.
Oh, and then I had my own notes about this one as well.
Oh, let's show this one for the folks at home, because this is
the
Bateman's just going to get deep.
This is just exciting.
Your number one overall pick? Or number one, or first round pick?
Yeah, number one.
He 45's out there. Loses a little bit, but what I like that he did here.
He gets the hand on the chest, but I think it's more than anything, it's just a really good play by Gross Matos. I mean, you can see Gross Matos do really good hand fighting here. Like, you can see him, and you can see a really good look at that. I mean, that's perfect edge play by Gross Matos. That's perfect pass rush technique.
And so what you'd like to see from him here is keep kicking. As soon as he shoots his hands, because when you shoot your hands, you can overextend a little bit where you kind of lose your base and you can't kind of keep moving your feet to keep up with them. So that's something that's going to just come with experience, but that's also going against, one of the better pass rushers in that 2019 draft. I mean,
it's just really good hand. That was the first thing I noticed. Like, I'm supposed to be watching for Faalele, but the first thing I noticed was just great hand fighting by Gross Matos, which I believe that was like one of his main points coming out, was that he had really good hand technique when he was coming out of Penn State. So, I mean,
I think we get one with Tony here. Yeah. So, I mean, that's where he just wants to get out on. Tony was a speed rusher with a little bit of a thinner frame. So I think what he's thinking pre-snap is, I just want to get out on this guy, get my hands on him, because once I do, it's kind of going to be over. So I thought, it shows how low Tony can get on here, because you can see his hand up in his face mask, which isn't great, but I mean, it's kind of like what you see in hockey when you see a taller guy hit a guy and it's a hit to the head. He's just taller, right? But
one of the things worth noting is when I was watching the broadcast, he had a bit of a penalty problem. A couple called against him. A lot of illegal man down, like at least 2 illegal man downfield, because they run a lot of those RPO type plays.
Yeah.
So
and that could also be an experience, not being well coached, and kind of when he can get down there. But I think what I'd like to see here again is I like the aggressiveness, because I think I know what he's thinking on this set, but you got to be a little careful with shooting those hands too early. So being a little bit more patient. Again, trusting your feet. I think that's probably my biggest takeaway with his pass protection where he can do better is trust your athleticism. Know that you can kind of kick step and maintain your mirror with them, and keep that inside hand to be able to cut off the inside counter. Because I think that's probably the biggest concern that I've seen highlighted with him is guys set him up for that. And so when he gets to the NFL, that's going to be not just every couple of games. It's going to be every game. Every game, someone's going to be setting you up to cut you back.
They're going to see it on film, and they're going to know what to do. So, I mean, it's funny because you're going to go from Makari, who's got like literally the smallest margin of error. Everything has to be perfect for him to do a rep. He's got the short arms that people love to talk about, and everything has to be perfect. So you're going to a guy like Faalele, who's got probably the largest margin of error for any tackle. Like, he could literally do so many things wrong, but because he has so many like physical advantages, if he just trusts his body, he could win 90% of reps without even like using technique. So I think it's just the opposite, like the fact that we could be going from one end to the other, I think is hilarious for that right tackle position.
Yeah, and I think Tyler, it just popped up there. Tyler Burnside in the chat made a good point. His Ravens draft potential could really be impacted by the Ravens' identity that was talked about in the presser this week. Would like to see more movement in space. They may look for more outside zone and jet. I think that's a good point, and I tried to talk about that a little bit with Linderbaum when I talked about, I don't really see Linderbaum as a scheme fit, and it's funny because someone asked me the other day, it's like, well, what kind of offense do you see Faalele fitting in? And my answer was, I actually could see him fitting in like a Cleveland, Tennessee offense where it's a lot of zone principles. Vikings is a good one too. Because what they'll do is use that run game as kind of a catalyst for their offense and use play action off of it. And so I think that puts Faalele in a bunch of positions to succeed. They're going to get him as a lead blocker, someone that can do some things on the backside. I think that's one thing he showed at the Senior Bowl this week. I didn't highlight any clips, but he's pretty athletic on the backside of zone runs and kind of chasing down and doing cutoff blocks. I think he does a really good job there, and just having the lateral athleticism that he has and the length to do reach blocks. So I think that's kind of an important aspect, but I still see him as a really good projection into a gap scheme where, especially double teams. I mean, with his lateral mobility,
there's a couple in this Ohio State game that we're gonna.
Yeah, I looked at his breakdown by snap, and so they have they run a little bit of counter where he's doing some down blocks, gap concepts, predominantly zone. It looked like in 2021. But you do see a nice mixture, and it's good to kind of see that because, again, we're looking at this from the lens of what does it look like in a Ravens offense. And so, I mean, we're going to need to see him down blocking. We're going to see him doing an arc release on the veer, his ability to get into level 2 and make some of those seal blocks. He's going to have to pull and on the counter bash that they run. But they also do run some outside zone. They run some inside zone. They run duo. They really
run everything. It's just gap is probably their mainstay.
I always think of them as more of a gap-based offense that will go kind of multi-pronged. So, but I mean, anyone with his type of size, athleticism, his ability to kind of be physical with guys, I think that projects well in a gap scheme where he's going to be asked to down block a lot. So, I mean, that kind of fits nicely. So I think biggest thing that I want people to focus on when we go through these, I think, and I'm going to keep referring to it, it's going to be about his hand placement and pass protection specifically. It's going to be about his hand placement, and it's going to be about that inside rush lane. So I think those are probably, in pass protection, his two biggest areas that he needs to improve. Because it's funny because I actually don't. There's not many situations where I'm like, he doesn't have the feet to do this. It's very rare in his game film that I have that concern. Whereas that's all people are talking about in the Senior Bowl.
I mean, that's where the basketball background comes into. I don't think he's athletic enough to play in any system. He's just got to, again, it's more trust in the footwork, more being he can reach any spot he needs to on a pull, on a down block, on getting to the second level. He can do it all. It's just about getting consistent at doing it, actually doing it. And I think, again, he's just so young when it comes to the game of football.
So there he goes out on a nice little. It looks kind of like a 45, but I called it a quick set because you can see him get right out there. And so
he barely gets any depth at all. So
he's a little too on the outside here again. So I think it shows high hand placement up on number 11's left shoulder pad, but he's got that inside lane open here because all he's basically got is his post legs too far outside of number 11's right leg. So he kind of tries to take advantage of that rush inside. Uses a nice little recovery there. Quarterback goes for a scramble, but it kind of showed me
so high.
It just shows me an overset on the quick set. So I think that something again we're going to talk about
placement still a problem.
Bad hand placement, inside counter, consistent issues. With
I would have loved to see what he would have been like this year if he had played 2020 and had that extra year to learn.
Well, see, that was interesting because there weren't many reps in 2019 where I thought he struggled. I think he showed different things. I think in 2021, you could tell he processed a lot faster and his play speed was higher, especially in the run game. And I think you're seeing that at the Senior Bowl. There's no bad reps of him run blocking. There's a lot of positive reps, especially in outside zone.
He's such a good run blocker. He literally just does not. He hardly loses a rep. If he does, it's because the edge is just playing really well contained. A really good contain. English hard.
And so there he gets beat inside. Same kind of problem, right? He oversets on the outside of his player. You can kind of see his leverage here. His head should be on that inside.
He's high.
He should be able to get that left hand up on the inside chest plate. Basically, all 11 has to do is kind of rip back inside and get on that, which is what he does. So
is he trying to get a hook hand with it? Is he trying to hook with his right hand there?
I love that you mentioned that. Did you notice how many times I wrote hook hand?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking, because I feel like that's what he's trying to do right there.
That the hook hand that he uses is one of those things where when I'm watching his film, I'm like, his coach focused on that. And so hook hand outside zone, you're going to see is basically, boxing punch. You see a guy throw a hook like that, right? So you see that a lot in outside zone I actually noticed it more in guards because you're trying to reach block guys that are pretty far from you. But he uses that hook block a lot, or the hook strike, where he's going to basically use his outside hand and reach the outside shoulder pad. And so the reason that you get your tackle to do that is because you want to really run that zone stretch, true outside zone, where he's going to run off the tackle's outside butt cheek and, reach the edge. So what he needs to do as the play side tackle is turn his guy inside with that
inside,
hook.
yeah.
So I've noticed that, and it's a really good example of when you're teaching a guy newer to a sport, and I'm saying this because I coach kids, right? I coach 13, 14-year-olds. So, when I teach them a technique and then I watch their game film, they're only doing the thing I taught them and they're just doing it over. They don't have the nuance to kind of mix up sets and that sort of thing. And I'm sure, Coach, if you're in the chat, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But you'll notice that. So I think that's kind of so right here, you can kind of see he's got that outside hand, but when he hooks that, he doesn't get enough movement on his guy. So ideally what we'd want to see here, nice low block. When 11 kind of cuts him more inside, he needs to be able to jack up that outside hand or outside shoulder pad, but then drive block him down the field and turn him in. But he loses his leverage because he's too far outside on his set. So that's kind of what I saw there. And I've seen that a few times with his game where he's kind of, in both the run and the pass game, where he's kind of oversetting outside. And so I think a lot of that is focusing on speed. He doesn't want to get beat on those short corners. So I think that's mostly where it's coming from. And so same idea here. We're going to see a little bit of a down block. I think this is out of the Wildcat. So similar to Linderbaum, you see a lot of these down block situations where they're using motion and it's in their Wildcat. But important contextual note here is they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They got Ohio State has 11 guys in the 41's probably outside. They have 10 guys in the box right now. So that box is stacked. The whole defense is up at the line of scrimmage.
They did it a lot.
Yeah, they were not afraid of their passing game, especially in 2021. So you're going to see Faalele bang down. He's going to try and do that hip toss again. But what I talked about earlier is that's more of a shuffle step. That's not like the true down block where he's going to kind of, and so I think he's doing that because
he's staying square. He's not turning at all. He's staying.
And what I like here is, I mean, it's not pretty, but it works. But he gets into 35, so he wants to bang down on this guy and then reach the mic. And so, well, that might actually be the will. Yeah, that's probably the will. But he needs to get to that play side linebacker, and so he's going to bang, take care of A, and then he ends up taking him to the ground just with his grip strength. So it's a little bit of an ugly play, but it works, right? So he's going to go. Bang.
He did his job, and that's all.
He absolutely did his job. So that's what I want to see on some of those doubles. I think a little bit of that shuffle step kind of took away the true, because ideally with how strong his upper body is, he'd be able to kind of just use his inside arm, that left hand, to kind of push down, give him a shot, and then already start working that right hand into the second level. I think that's something that you could really develop with his technique over time in those down block situations. And we see that a lot from Ravens tackles all the time, where they're going to just kind of bang down on a guy and then reach level 2. So I think that's a good way of showing some of his projection. I think I can show the hook hand here. Yeah, you can see the hook hand and turn in. That's what he doesn't get a lot of forward movement on his guy, but this is when I talk about the hook hand, this is really what it is. So he's going to use that right hand, hook it like a boxer right there, and then he's going to start turning number 8 inwards. And so right there, he wanted that running back to go to the outside of his butt. And so he kind of, he ends up there, but because Faalele didn't get enough push down field, it kind of, it made him have to run a flatter route as the running back. So that's something I think that's going to stand out a little bit. But that, when I say hook hand, that's really what I'm talking about in terms of zone blocking. Just get that hook out there. I think we get it. Okay, we got a lot of snatches in this game too, which gets me excited.
There's one that the first time I saw it, I was like by myself in my living room, and I audibly laughed out loud to nobody.
This is kind, like, I mean, this is technically a snatch, but like he's gonna 45 out to 8 here. Where is it?
I was gonna ask you if this was a true snatch, because it looks like more like than anything like it's just a momentum thing, which is why the defender falls.
I think he kind of turned into it, so we'll see here. Let's see where he hits his strike. So he's going to hit a strike there. If he's trying to snatch, usually he wants, and what he does in this game a lot is when guys come out and get hands high on him, he goes and pushes their hands down against, uses their momentum as they're going down. So, I mean, he's got him square here. This is just grip strength to me. He hit his punch and started to kind of push down, but I don't think he was naturally trying to run a snatch.
No,
I think he was just kind of hitting his hands, and because his grip strength
pushing him down. Quite literally.
And then he's going to give him a little dirt on the back. I like that. But, I just like, this is grip strength right here. Like, this is how strong his hands are. And he trusts his feet. He's going with them. Keeps kicking while his hands are on him. Doesn't stop his feet. He looked comfortable in this set. So that was kind of like, what's his 45 set look like? He does this a lot. This is what it can look like, right? So, you weren't seeing any short corners or him getting pulled when he's doing stuff like that. But I honestly think he hit his punch and he just started to naturally lower his hands. And as he does, because he's so strong, he took number 8 down with him. Because you'll see, we'll see later. I think I got back-to-back. Yeah, I got back-to-back plays around the 608 mark where he hits back-to-back snatches. And you'll see the difference in what his snatch looks like. His snatch is violent. There's a hook hand, turn him in. Did we just watch this? I think I skipped play.
Yeah, I was wondering. The notes didn't line up for the hook hand.
Hold on. 252. We're suffering technical difficulties. There we go. Okay, 252 here.
Now that's a bit more of a true down block right there, right? Less of the shuffle.
Yeah. And again, they're in the Wildcat. So I think most of Linderbaum's down blocks in that zone-heavy Iowa scheme came on Wildcat snaps where they ran more of a gap concept. But he's right here. You can't really see 78, but he's at his right tackle spot. They have an extra lineman in there at the tight end spot on his side. But like that's what it can look like, right? Like that's that. It's like what's his fit in the Ravens run scheme? If they're going to run, I mean, typically what you would see if they're running power, down block here, 64 would be their left guard pulling, and he's just got to clear his lane. Look how fast he does it. He takes him right down.
Huge hope for the running back.
How can I project him as a Raven in a gap scheme? This type of play where he's just going to run guys down and push them down the line. Like that's pure strength. How do you even really anchor against that?
Bully ball? That's what we've been saying we want. We want more bully ball. That is bully ball right there.
And then I think we get.
This is another.
Yeah, and so this is I pulled this one because I was noticing this at the Senior Bowl. So this is backside, right? So he's on the backside. Not necessarily like backside tackle on some of these zone runs isn't huge deal. But I thought this just looked really good. Ability to turn that guy in, take care of business, finish on top of him. That's kind of what I've been noticing at the Senior Bowl.
He finishes pretty like if a run block is successful for him, he probably finished.
Yeah,
either he doesn't win or he finishes. There's really no in between for him.
I think it's something he didn't really get enough credit for because of how much finesse blocking he's being asked to do. But when he gets an opportunity to put you in the dirt, he doesn't. I don't think, I talked about physicality with that Lucado play at the Senior Bowl, but I don't think he's lacks physicality necessarily.
No.
I honestly think I don't think he has the confidence yet. I think he's so focused on executing his assignment, and
he's trying to do everything technically sound by the book, trying to do what he does in practice and apply it to the game. He's not to the point where it's like, okay, I know what I'm doing. Let me just do it.
And a good example of that, I think, is how much he throws that hook hand. That's something that you coach. You want your guys to do consistently because it's good technique on the front side of the zone.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good example of it's like, well, what do you mean? Like, what's an example of that? I would say, look at how much he uses that hook hand. He was coached to do that, and he's just trying to focus on executing his assignment.
I think the snatches are a good example of that. Like coaches saw, like, dude, you're bigger than everybody. Just use the snatch, push him down, and it'll work. And he's like, okay, sure. And it just works for him, so he does it.
I think he's going to go inside lane here. Yeah, overset, inside lane. This is kind of – he's got help. I debated a few times about whether I want to show this clip. So pre-snap, he's got kind of like a 6-7 tech. He's got an outside rusher here, wind up wide. He's got his guard with someone on his inside foot. So I wouldn't necessarily be expecting inside help on this play. But 56, you can see he's there, and Faalele doesn't really panic when he goes inside on him. He just see how he kind of sits back there.
I feel like he passes him off. Like it looks like the line like slid right. I feel like he had to know he had the inside help, or at least I'm hoping that he thought he had inside help, whether or not he did, which is why he overset so much.
This is why I need someone here. I actually didn't notice the line slide right. You're right. That has to be what it is. Yeah, you're right.
I don't think he sets that much if he doesn't think, right or wrong, that he has help.
I watched this play so many times, and I'm like, if you get beat inside, you're not even going to try and recover. And when he sat back down, it's like, why? But you're absolutely.
I think it's a pass off. I think the line slides right.
You're bang on. This is why you need two people on these. Two people seeing different things. You're bang on. Yeah. So skip that one.
I actually really like that rep. That's exactly what you want. I mean,
where's that 445 clip?
Oh, this one's just fun.
Is this the?
Yeah, the 445 should be the.
Oh wait, I need 420. I want that next 45 set. I have way too many clips in this game.
There's a lot. He did so much in this game.
I didn't go look at the snap count, but this was a 12-minute video, and it's just the end zone view. So it was there's a lot of snaps in this game. So he's going to 45 out. And so I like that there. Like he tried to bend his edge. He tried to duck under his hands. See him trying.
He doesn't panic at the speed.
And so
he just keeps kicking and pushes him out of the pocket.
Let's see here. So he's thinking, I'm going to basically rip under your arm. You're so tall. I'm going to rip under your arm. And then just kind of short corner you around. But beautiful recovery. And the ball was out. So, I mean, you don't really see a true outcome to this one. But he kept kicking his feet, and he had that inside or outside lane. It was closed. He was closed for business on this play.
Yeah.
So again,
he has room to work.
When I'm talking about him trusting his feet, this was trusting his feet to me. He just keeps kicking those feet. He just goes kick, kick, kick while he's working his hands. So his ability to do that on that play was really impressive.
You noted a lot that you wanted him to be more patient with his hands. I think it's just if he's just more patient everywhere. Like I'm fine if he wants to do a couple ghost hands and maybe be a little, but like if his feet are just consistent and smooth and he stays patient with his body, I think he's so good when his overall way of playing in the pass game is patience. If he wants to be aggressive in the run game, great. That's when he's a beast. That's why he is as high as a prospect, is because of how good he is in the run game. If he's just a true patient pass blocker, though, I don't see how a guy really just wins against him. Besides, good, it's.
Yeah, I think the thing that
he's so physically dominant when he does things right.
What I consider the most with that is, when I see guys leaning, and I noticed this with E21 too, and I talked about it. Anytime that he was kind of getting those hip hinges, and you don't see it often with E21, so I don't want to make it sound like it was a consistent problem because it wasn't. But you would see him at times hip hinge, and you would also see him overset on guys. And I talked about this with James when we did his video. I thought that E21 didn't trust his feet. I thought that's why he was oversetting and why he was going to get beat inside was because he wasn't trusting his athleticism, which is crazy because E21's got such quick feet on his kick step. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same idea of that patience, right? I want to see you keep kicking your feet. And what I want to see is you kind of angle a guy off, let them rush outside. That's fine. You'll be able to kick step and keep pace with them, but don't lose that inside look. And so what you'll notice is guys that are big, strong dudes, they want to get their hands on a defender as quickly as possible. Just lock them up. Because if I get my hands on you, you ain't getting by me. So that's when I talk about patience. I think that's my biggest thing with Faalele. And that's what I've noticed at Senior Bowl. When he trusts his feet and he just sits back, stays patient, goes through his set, stays, nice and tight posture, and then lets the guy come into him, then stick that punch. That's what I'd like to see in terms of the patience. I just thought it was interesting with E21 because it's really just using your length in general. When you're so tempted to get your hands on a guy, it leads to it's hip hinging, it's
overextending,
stop moving your feet and kind of giving up those short corners. It's oversetting on a guy, trying to trust that you'll be able to hit that inside stab hand, all that kind of stuff.
It's relying too much on it doesn't matter as long as I get that one inside hand on, then I'm going to lock him up. Well, it's like, well, no, because then he can just swim inside of you.
Or you focus too much on, if he goes inside on me, that's fine because I can just use my brute upper body strength to recover. But you don't want to see that, right? You don't want
to rely on that. That's not something you want to rely on. That's part of that margin of error that if you do screw up, you have that to fall back on.
Yeah. That's very well said. And then this is just, you want a touchdown, you run to that right side of this line. So he's just going to collapse.
That's a big boy.
And he turns in. He hit. This is great because he drives his guy, but you'll see. So he's gonna basically hook to the right of his head here, and he basically takes 35 out of the play at the same time because he's moving forward so much. There's nowhere to move.
Yeah, there's
So that was just a fun play. I like stuff like that. I mean, I wish I would have.
And that's Ravens offense right there. I'm sorry, I literally can picture Gus Edwards running right behind him.
And then
Which one is this?
That's just ugly hand placement. High and wide. He almost doesn't really hit his shoulder pads. His
Okay.
hands are too high. One inconsistent hand placements definitely, like, he's up just too high here. But I mean,
he's practically at the helmet. I mean, it's
and we talked about this. I talked about this with you in the DMs. Like, he's just so damn wide that when like he gets right up in the kitchen here, right? So he's going to kind of quick set out on him, a bit of a 45 quick, and he's hard to run around when you're that big, right? So he kind of hits him with too wide arms. Well, that guy's still got to recover. I mean, he just blasts you in the face. But I mean, I picked this because I wanted to show some inconsistent hand usage, but
that's
it was
a concussion right there.
It just so happens to be a play that he puts the guy in the dirt too. I love this play. This is kind of I'm calling this zone read. I don't know if it's zone read. Coach, if you're watching and you have a different look, or anyone, Mike, if you're in the chat, tell me if you think this is zone read. I just keep calling it. But you're going to see 3 shoot the A gap or the B gap. And so 3's going to shoot the gap, and Faalele is going to come off his guy last second and blast his hands at him to kind of, because I think he's not sure, right, if it's a running back dive or if the quarterback's keeping it. So I liked his adjustment here. So he's going to double on 9 with his, I think that's another O lineman, but it's in the tight end alignment. And then see 3 there? And he just takes that inside hand and just blasts it across to kind of get a bit of force to make a play. So it's one of those plays where it's a little ugly, not how you coach it, but it worked. And he takes 3 right down. So here he's going to double. He looks up, nice processing, and then he just comes off, shows that agility.
Basically hip maneuvers him. Basically just hits his hip and is like, look, I might not reach you, but I'm still going to lay enough weight into you that you're not going to be able to move against me.
And this was a play I wanted to pick because I noticed this in some of his combo blocks in 2019 where especially when he's on the backside of a combo block concept, he didn't really have his head up and he wasn't really processing what's coming off of his combo block. He's really focused on the initial double team. Like, I got to take care of plan A before I can move on, right? So what I liked here, head up, head on a swivel, processing, play speed, taking care of business. So that's kind of a little bit of it's a good example of some development he showed.
And that's part of where, like, a lot of, like, again, people are getting nervous about the Senior Bowl tape. I'm like, look at just the growth from 2019 to 2021 without playing a year in 2020. And just remember that he's 5 years in. He still has so much room to grow. He, like, from what I've read, he's constantly working. So I don't see why he's not going to continue to get better, especially in a place that develops offensive linemen like Baltimore. I'm still really high on Faalele personally. I think he's a perfect fit.
And then I think damn it's snatch time.
This is
So that's just this is on a play action, but this is just how you just mean.
This is getting the rug pulled from under you.
So this is a play action snap. One of the, he's got good hand placement here. He's got low hands. 9's got high hands on him. And see how he starts to push up on his face mask. That's how high 9's hands are. So Faalele says, okay, all right. Boom.
Doink.
So what I like about this, it's not just that he snatched him and it's a fun block and, it shows some aggressiveness. He gets him on the ground. It's that I think he adjusted really well to how high 9's hands were. It's showing that kind of development in his technique. You want to come at me with your hands high? Boom, snatch those hands down. It shows that kind of adjustment in the middle of a snap, shows good processing, good play speed. That's something that, I know no one really wants to talk about the good things that he did, but it's something that Alejandro Villanueva does really well.
He snatches like a maniac. I feel like it's his plan every rep with AD.
It's got to be because he's got no anchor. So it's like he's basically just trying to get you to come high at you so that I can snatch you. It's how he wants. It's ironically what made him such a good pass protector earlier in his career was that snatch technique. But it's funny because he's dealing with the same type of natural leverage as Faalele. The difference is Falale's got 60 pounds on Villanueva. He weighed in at like 320 this year, 325, and Falale's 387. So, you're not going to – someone on the timeline reacted to one of those the one in Miage bowling him and said, "Oh, look, it's AV 2.0," and I almost chucked my mouse. We're not bringing that kind of slanderous talk around here, but what I like here, advanced technique and reacting to it. What I want to see is him react to rushers. If you're going to come at me with a certain technique, I want to see him adjust his set, adjust things that he's doing with his hands that it's going to counter to what you're doing. That's kind of the game within the game between an offensive tackle and a pass rusher. So when I see stuff like this, boom, all right, boom, done. Bury it. Love it. I think this went for. No, he got a flag.
No, bounces off the receiver's
hands. And then
hands.
I think this is the very next play, 618. Yeah. So this is the very next play. Same rusher. Yep, same rusher. Other play action. Boom. So same kind of concept. He's going to come in, hands high. Your hands are higher than mine. Boom. Take your leverage away from you. Again, reacting to what Nine's doing within that set. He kind of tries to stick him high with his hands rather than just kind of sit under. He goes, boom, take your leverage away from you. Reacting to what they're doing here. And so I think that's something that he really showed in 2021 was more advanced hand usage technique. I still think his hand placement's inconsistent.
But hand fighting is...
Seeing that hand fighting develop, and this is a hand fighting clip here. I think it's on PA again. See, he does it again. He takes that leverage away. You want to stick me with your stab arm to kind of branch off of it? Watch his left hand. Boom. Slap that away. That's just like that is
11-inch hands just slapping against your wrist. You're not keeping your grip when 11-inch hands slap against that tongue twister.
I think that was that a strip fumble for a touchdown?
Yes.
I didn't even notice that when I watched.
I watched Faalele a couple times, and then I watched the play, and I was like, well,
okay, so we won't be drafting Minnesota's left tackle. But yeah.
On the other hand, who does Ohio State have rushing right there?
Where's 852? I think we get another snatch here.
Yeah.
Just, again, he's patient with his hands. I think this was the point. I was trying to follow the score. I think this is Ohio State's up 14 at this point. I hadn't seen 33 all game, so I don't know if this is their backups coming into the game. Not that it really matters. Still a nice play, but important, I think, to think about the competition. But yeah, I mean, just there's his natural size. Like 33 tries to kind of get his hands out at him, and he just can't. He's just dominated by him physically. This is going to be one of those tosses, judo top, take out 3 guys. Again, just physicality, strength, athleticism to kind of do that judo toss. So he's going to bang down here, take 33 with you, and take 22 out at the same time. Basically throws 33 into 22. I think we get another toss here. So again, it's one of those shuffle steps again. Again, why I think he's shuffle stepping because this is zone read, so he's zone blocking to his left. But just sheer strength there. Different play, but same idea. Does that a lot in this game with those down blocks is really get movement on guys. I think this is the last clip we got. So he's going to bang, get it into level 2. 30. He hits 30 with so much force that he's knocked off balance.
And then just goes to make sure he doesn't get up again.
Finish on top of him. So that's all the clips we got in this game. If you guys are watching, you guys have questions, post them now. We're going to wrap up with a little bit of a discussion and kind of where I want to focus with the discussion on him, because I think a lot of people have put this out there, and it's kind of like Faalele is a boom bust guy. And so I think that's always an interesting concept, because that was the conversation around Odafe Owe, right? He's a boom bust prospect. He had 0 sacks at Penn State this last year. Boom bust. So and I disagree. So the question is, why does Cole disagree with that? I don't think Faalele is boom bust because I see very, very few scenarios where Faalele, as an outcome of a prospect, isn't at the very least a good run blocking right tackle in the National Football League. I think he shows a lot of versatility. I think he shows a lot of strength. Definitely some things to fix in terms of hand placement, even in the run game. I wouldn't deny that. There's a little bit of rawness there. A lot of that's just going to come with repetition and getting used to the NFL or NFL, getting used to football in general. But I guess I don't really consider him that kind of low floor guy.
That it doesn't have that low floor. He can come in and immediately dominate probably in any team's run game. Like he can do anything you ask of him in the run game.
I think so because he's got that athleticism matched with the size. It's a similar concept to Owe because I didn't think Owe was boom bust because Owe was so good against the run. So it was his ability to be that kind of immediate contributor, even if it's just as an edge defender setting the edge, playing the run game. I thought he kind of had that. Man. Yeah. And so it's like, do you want that in a top 64 pick? Maybe not. But when we're talking about a guy as a boom bust, I really think you have to factor that piece in.
The floor isn't low enough for the bust to be there. It may not.
That's how I see it.
He may not boom to where you'd want a first round pick to boom to, but he's going to be able to take significant snaps for your team. He's going to be able to fill a role. Yeah. Faalele would be able to come in, probably take the right tackle job no matter what, besides like injury or anything. He'd probably be able to take the right tackle job, work on the pass set consistency, work on the hand placement consistency, and still probably give you a better offensive line tackle duo than what we had last year.
So let me press you on that one. So do you think, based on what you've seen and some of the potential he shows, do you think he could play left tackle at the NFL level?
That question is always hard for me because you just never know how well a guy is going to do when he switches his feet.
Okay, so I thought about this. So let me give you my answer because I talked about this with Chris Aguilera the other day, and he made some really good points, things I didn't think about. I think an argument for him being able to make that switch is how raw he is. He doesn't.
He's not used to
some of these left tackles. Take Villanueva for a second, or for an example. When he tried to switch, he played 10 years at left tackle. Faalele has only played 5 years of football. So he doesn't have some of those habits ingrained in his, and I use this example because, and I mean, anyone that kind of coached or even someone that's at home kind of doing technique for fun, when I line up to show my kids a drill or to do something, my left foot's always back offset of my right foot. Why? Because I played left guard my whole life. My natural instinct is to line up as if I'm on the left side of the offensive line because that's all I know. I never played the right side of the line. I was always a left guard. So I always thought that stood out as something being kind of interesting. And then Chris made the point, Faalele being so raw, he doesn't have those kind of built into him that he's been doing for years and years and years. So, I mean, there are some things, and I think you make a good point. Muscle dexterity differs from person to person, and you really don't know how it's going to play out until you actually ask them to do it. So, I mean, people keep asking me, like, do you think left tackles can switch to right tackle and vice versa? And it's like, my kind of answer has become, well, I'd have to know the player. Like, I just don't.
That's kind of, I think he could. I think he's got the athleticism to learn it. I think he's still young and raw enough to learn it. I don't see any reason why he couldn't, with a couple weeks of practicing kicking the other way, why he couldn't do it. He's uber athletic. He should be able to do it. But you don't know that he might be very uncomfortable kicking that way. He might not his feet might not work that way. And
that was kind of the issue with Villanueva is you could see issues with a set point where you could tell he's just not comfortable getting to his set point and feeling comfortable within his technique. So, I mean, it's always hard to say. I think based on some of his athletic potential, so the way I see him move in the run game, and I mean, lateral movement isn't necessarily going to translate to good pass work, pass protection, footwork. but I think he's got good foot speed. Ironically, I think if he could work on his,
I don't think that's
vertical
a problem.
sets-
I don't know where the foot speed
it's
has
the
like problems.
it's the Senior Bowl. You see those clips, and you're like, you see a big dude slow,
But that's
getting bowled over.
it's not like I don't think it's a foot speed problem. Like I don't know. I was watching Faalele weeks ago before the Senior Bowl even started, and I was like, yeah, he's got
He's fluid.
smooth feet. Yeah,
He's fluid.
he's more fluid than I'll probably ever be while being almost 400 pounds. It's I'm jealous. I'm like, where it's ridiculous. He moves like he's 330. It's
Yeah, no, it's true.
It's
so
unfair.
I think
It's
he's got some of that
legitimately
ability. I would, it's always going to be hard to project, but in terms of some of his, if I look at his traits, I think he might be. I really do see a type of path where he has to develop his game like an Orlando Brown Jr. So what Orlando Brown Jr. did so well was in his vertical sets, his 45 sets, the way he anticipated rushers was next level. And I bring this up all the time because I just loved hearing it actually come from Orlando himself. He talks about this on Brandon Thorne's podcast, the interview he did with him, talks about guys that he watched play, went through some of the great offensive tackles, talking about things that they do. He mentions Ronnie Stanley in that. Orlando's a couple years younger than Ronnie. Obviously, watched Ronnie when he came with the Ravens. But just hearing him talk about technique, use of length, how nimble he was, I think that's really what made Orlando Brown Jr. become the pass protector that he became, was his ability to anticipate the rusher, stay patient in a set, use his length and his foot speed. Just trust his athleticism. He didn't have to move guys because he had that margin of error with how long of a player he is. Faalele is going to have that same type of approach. The first thing I'd be focusing on with him, and I mean, so the question is, what traits do I see in his game that kind of give me that comparison? It's really how fluid his hips are. I find even at the Senior Bowl this week, I find he's able to square guys up really well. And so his ability to kind of play out on that island, square guys, I think with the proper technique, proper, feel and that adjustment and that comfort in terms of trusting his footwork, I think that really lends itself well to being able to become a really, really good pass protector. So I would say he's not there as a pass protector. I think he's got a lot of things to work on. We highlighted them with the film tonight. But in terms of some of those traits that I see that I really want to see, smooth footwork, fluid hips, those things, and we've seen it. We've seen it with Tyree Phillips. We've seen it with Ben Cleveland. It's really hard to make guys more fluid. I don't think Faalele has that issue. And that's being at his size, which is ridiculous. But it just shows it's that rugby background, it's that basketball background, more fluid sports. You can't really be rigid. So I think that's really what gives me hope with his pass protection game.
So if Tyree Phillips' problem was that he's this great guard, he can do all this, but we can't seem to speed up his feet at tackle. We can't seem to speed it up. No matter what we do, he just doesn't have fluid feet. He doesn't have smooth feet. But otherwise, he'd be a great tackle. Then why are we talking about Faalele? Like, I don't know. He's getting run over a lot. AV point, like, he's got everything you need from an athletic standpoint. Everything that's there is so fixable. It's like that's what I've been telling people on Twitter. It's just like, yeah, I see what you're seeing and I understand why you're nervous. But everything that you're pointing out is fixable. The hand placement, the patience, the foot speed. And then the thing I like is that he's another finisher. I really think this offensive line needs guys that'll finish. You brought up earlier in a tweet today, like you want to see somebody like maybe Trevor Penning or maybe bring Ryan Jensen back, who I'm all aboard that train. That's a guy that if you put Ryan Jensen back on this line, that gets guys like Cleveland to finish. That gets guys like,
it's infectious.
Yeah, like when you have a violent guy like that
back on this line.
Whoa.
Yeah. Video playback.
God, is that what I really sound like? When you have a guy like Ryan Jensen who comes and finishes like that, it brings that infectious, like, okay, let's go and bully some defensive lines.
Yeah. No, I agree. And so I guess let's end on this note. Wrap him up. Give me a little synopsis. What do you think about him as a player? How do you think he fits on the Ravens? And where do you think is a nice little spot for the Ravens to try and nab him?
nabbing him is the difficult part to pinpoint. As far as I think, besides maybe Kyle Hamilton, who I've like on Twitter, I've been raving over. I can go into Kyle Hamilton and the DBs all day. Besides maybe Kyle Hamilton, I don't think there's a better fit in this draft than maybe Faalele to the Ravens. He probably, like you said, can play the left side. He offers that assurance for Ronnie. He can do everything you need to in the run game, which is so important for a team that runs every type of run play. And the pass protection ceiling is there. I think your comparison to Orlando Brown kind of says what it needs to say about a fit with the Ravens. The Ravens probably had the best tackle duo when they had Ronnie and Zeus like on the bookends. So what do you want to do to replace Orlando Brown? You get the closest thing to him. That's what they tried to do with AV, and it just didn't work out.
Right. Yeah, that's really where I land too, because it's like I can look at his run game. I do see a versatile run blocker. I see a guy that ran a lot of zone, but I think with the right technique cleanup, specifically on those down blocks, getting away from some of that shuffle step stuff, I think he projects really well just based on his explosiveness with his first step and his sheer strength and size. Down blocking is not going to be an issue. I also think he's going to do really well in combination blocks.
I think he could pull.
I think he could probably pull pretty well. And again, you see that fluidness.
Yeah. Fluid hips, fluid feet. For as big as he is, I don't really see him missing getting to a spot. I don't, unless we're talking like a cornerback or a linebacker that runs 4-3, 4-4, and that they know exactly where they need to be to blow up the run play. I don't see him missing a spot against like your average NFL linebacker.
And so what really impacts his valuation is your projection, I guess, towards his pass protection. And can he clean up his pass protection? So if someone asks me point blank, why do you think he'll be able to develop that? I would take a look at his footwork. Sorry, not his footwork, his foot speed, because I do think it's pretty good. I don't think it's low. I don't think he has slow feet. It's not really an issue. And I would also point to his hip fluidity, because I think the way he squares guys up, he may overset on them. That's technique based. I think I can work on that. I think I can work on his set points. I think I can work on getting him to trust his feet and even set more inside on guys. And then when they try and bend your edge, wash them out of the pocket. I think those are things I can work on. But in terms of those transferable skills, those things I need to see, his foot speed and his hip fluidity are the two things I'd point to the most that I think are going to allow him to develop that pass protection skill set. So I think he needs too much work in pass protection, which is that important that he falls out of the first round. But I think that potential is high enough that he ain't falling out of the second round. Someone's going to gamble on that.
With as much kind of like questioning going on about him at the Senior Bowl, I was worried that the Senior Bowl would like put him into the first round. Like I was worried that he would absolutely dominate the Senior Bowl. If the Ravens wanted him, they'd have to trade up into the 20s or trade back from the 14 into the 20s to get him. I was like, there's really, now I'm starting to question, okay, maybe there's a chance that he falls like into the 40s, but I wouldn't bet on it. I think if the Ravens won him, they'd probably have to trade up to like 35, 36. I think you need to be in that mid 30s range to grab him.
And I think that makes sense, because I think he's probably going to top Petit Frere as a prospect. I think he's going to, I'm trying to remember who's in that bottom tier. I don't think he's going to overtake Penning. I think Penning's kind of solidifying himself as number 4 in the top.
I think Penning should go somewhere in the first round.
That's what I'd expect too. And who's in the top? Oh, Raymond. I think he's going to top Raymond, because Raymond's 25 years old. That's a huge hit on him. I think Raymond lacks some of that upside potential. Raymond. Yeah, I don't want to go too far into Raymond because I'm going to do him next week, but I want to do him and Godecki at the same time. But I do like him though. Raymond being 25, Raymond having shorter arms and a little bit less upper body strength. For a guy that's 25, I want to see him dominating guys a little bit more physically, because that's the thing with some of these kids, right? They still have that ability to add add to their frame and add that, there's still going to be a little bit of muscle development, especially for some of the younger guys.
All I'm going to say is it should be illegal if Faalele is allowed to add to his frame.
I don't think he'll be adding to his frame.
That is illegal.
Yeah, no, I agree there. So I think that's going to I think that might push Faalele over Raymond, and I know that's not the consensus opinion. That's just my take. I'm obviously a lot higher on Faalele. Understand his limitations.
No,
I think you're going to gamble on that upside and move him up your board.
Would you be because I don't think I would. Would you be surprised to see somebody maybe like trade into like 31, 32, grab him in the first round? Just don't say arm length. Trade into that 31, 32 spot just to grab him to have that 5th year on him?
I could, but I really don't think anyone's going to give up that capital because I talked about it earlier today. The Ravens jump up to 32, and they may have paid a QB tax. You sometimes will see teams pay a little bit more, but if you stay true to the JJ chart, which there's a lot of evidence that JJ chart is in line with the way teams trade in the NFL. You're potentially giving up a future second to make that jump from like the middle of the first into 32. What I worry about is if they're high on him, they have a high valuation on him. He could be that, and I always compare it to T. Higgins. He could be that T. Higgins where I thought, honest to God, no word of a lie, I thought T. Higgins would fall. And he went pick 33 to the Bengals. And then Michael Pittman went 34. And I was like,
I remember after that first round, and we were sitting there, we were like, T. Higgins fell out of the first round, Pittman fell out of the first round. We might have a shot with two of those guys falling out of. We've got a real shot at that, like one of these receivers here in this second round, and then bam, bam.
Yeah, and so how does he compare with Bernard Raymond? If you want to go back, I go a little bit more in depth. I think the bigger thing with Faalele is he's going to be more physically imposing. I think he's going to be a better run blocker. I think Raymond probably has the upside on him as a pass protector right now. And just to repeat, I think the biggest issue with Raymond, 25 years old, maxes him out physically. And I said that about Hayden Hurst when we picked him. Same situation. Hayden Hurst started late in the NFL because he had that minor league baseball career. Raymond did a year, if I remember correctly.
God, that is so sick. I keep forgetting about that.
Yeah. Raymond did a year as he had to do a year of military service in Austria because he's from Austria. So he had to do a year of military service that kind of delayed his college career, if I remember the timeline correctly. I'm going to have to dive into that when I do it. So I personally have Faalele above. However, I acknowledge I don't think that's the consensus opinion. I think other people are higher on Raymond than Faalele. I'm the flip. And so, this is one of those things where you're going to evaluate the guys you put in the work, stick to your guns, stick to your evaluation, trust what you see. So that's what I'm going to do with Faalele.
Oh yeah, I love Faalele. I'm all for them taking whoever they want at 14 and then taking a second and one of those many fourths they have moving into 35, 36 and grabbing. I think that's a bang on 1-2 right there.
I think that's probably the most likely scenario if they want to go with him as kind of that right tackle guy. They have that confidence that Stanley's going to get back, get healthy. They want to get their new right tackle. They'll give up that fourth, jump up in the second round and just nab him. That seems like the most likely outcome to land him specifically. So that's all we have for you guys. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Be sure to check out Zach on Twitter. His at's right there at @perp_blackveins. Thanks so much for joining me, Zach. So for everybody out there, be good to yourselves, be good to each other.